Hello everyone, welcome to Redline Collectibles. Say, there have been some questions recently about colors of Spectraflame cars. When Mattel was producing these wonderful toys back in the late 60s, early 70s, during the Spectraflame era, 1968 through 1972, there was only, the 4 years of magic really. And the Spectraflame changed then to enamels in 73. So we have in front of us here a perfect example of different colors that sometimes get confused. And what I wanted to do today is to go over the subtleties and differences of colors when someone will say antifreeze as an example, or olive, lime yellow, and then different shades and tones of the colors. So the purpose of this video is to sort of go over the colors and how you can determine them. And chances are you have been down this road before where you're trying to determine the color. What is what is an olive, for as an example? How do you identify a true olive color? And that's really the goal here. How can we discern that? The way that I've done this is I take a known color, like this olive custom Corvette, and I put it side by side with, a lime yellow. Now this lime yellow Ferrari is toned. You can obviously see you've got some yellow action here. You got the lime yellow going on, the toning going on there. And, who knows, it could be a yellow. But the way that I've done it is I take the car and I take the wheels off the bottom, right? Remove the wheels, look in between. And by the way, I use this tool here. I got this from one of the online stores. It's a tool that I've used to take off wheels and to adjust the axles with this really unique little product. The original tune-up kit, tune-up tower, or tune-up wrench, if you will, from Mattel, this was closed. The opening allows you, at least for me, to get in between the wheel and, in this case, the bearing parts. So I typically will take this tool in between and then wiggle off the tire. Usually it kind of pops out like that. There's your bearing. Now the reason I'm doing this is I wanted to show you the way to identify the car's original color. And that is shown by going underneath, where no sunlight has spent a lot of time to affect the color. And sure enough, you can kind of deduce, obviously this is an olive, right? Like we talked about. But you can really more identify a true color by looking underneath the hub. So let's take the other one off again. I just take the tool, place it in between the metal on the base, and then just pop that tire off. And again, to identify the color. Now it's a little bit light spray there, so I don't want to spend a lot of time with it because it's so obvious what color it is. But let's take the question car, and that is going to be our beautiful custom Mustang here. The Mustang that, at first glance you could say, well, that's olive too, but I don't think so. I don't think it is olive. When I take the olive and I put it next to it, now again, this is a combination of LED lights and an incandescent light. I'm trying to mimic as close as I can to natural light. And obviously there's some toning going on here and some toning going on here as well. So this is more like a dark olive. But you see the hood? See how that's a little bit lighter? That's the thing that really keeps you on your toes with this hobby, is to, sort of deduce what is the true color. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out, because obviously you can see the hood has its own unique flavor to it, right? So let's pop the tire off like we did with that Corvette and pop off another one just for giggles. And let's look underneath the hub underneath that wheel hub. Notice the darkness on that too. It's got a shiny darkness. Look underneath there. Seeing that there? That's the way you can really sort of get a true perspective of its color. So I'm going to take off the tire on the coupe, which is a antifreeze. This is for sure antifreeze. Antifreeze has a, some people will call it milky, a milky hue appearance. And I like to always have some comparison colors so that, you know, you have a pretty good 99% chance of getting the color right. Now, there are going to be, like I said, when you have toning going on and that kind of thing, you may not get the true color, you know, confirmation by doing what I'm doing here. So again, I take that with a grain of caution. But you see that obviously there's some antifreeze going on there. You know, this antifreeze versus what's going on underneath the Mustang. True antifreeze hidden underneath that hub there, and the Mustang hidden underneath there looks pretty much like a different color, would you say? Yeah, some of this is the eye of the beholder too, but I'm going to say true antifreeze. I'm going lime yellow here. It's definitely not olive, but let's bring another car into the picture. Now this one's a little bit different, and that's going to be the Ferrari here, which you saw when I first had the lens open a little bit higher. Now the Ferrari, of course, has capped tires. So you can't take a tool, right, and go underneath and try to take that cap off. That's not going to work. You see the cap? It has no white bearing to it. So take this tool and put it on the sidelines and use what I have always found to be man's best friend when you're trying to take off a cap, and that is, you see there's a little ridge right there. See that ridge right there where the end of my razor blade is? See that ridge? You see it all different, the large and the medium. You take the sharp edge, right, of the razor blade, you get it right next to the side of that cap. Make sure you feel the end of it going on there. It'll slide in a little bit, right? It's in between now. And then just try to twist a little bit. See if you can kind of wedge it out, kind of wobble back and forth a little bit, because you don't want to damage the tire either. I've been down that road before, and you don't want to damage the tire. So you try to, I go in a couple different spaces, and I try to just wedge it in there a little bit and see if I can make a nice little indentation into that little edge and have it pop out of there. Okay, that one's not going out so good. So let's try to go on the other side here. Maybe this tire right over here will be a little bit more cooperative. There it goes. So now, and the reason I did that is so you can see underneath. What is that color looking like underneath there? Even though part of the cap is still there, you see the color that is shown in just in between the cap and the underside of the hub. Look at that. Sort of get that color. Again, I'm twisting and turning it in the light so you can kind of see what's going on here. And I'm going to take the Mustang back. See if we can look at these two together. Now this is a different age, obviously 1970, 1968, but lime yellow is where I'm going with this color. And of course, you got the tone thing going on there, right? And I'm looking at a tone, right? Untoned, toned, untoned. But someone would say, well, this is antifreeze, right? Well, look at the color. Is it milky? Does it have that hue to it? That's what we're looking for, is does it have any attributes of a milky appearance to it? Are you seeing that at all? As you compare the color, milky, not so much over here. So, the end of the story here, I feel, going by what we just looked at here, is I'm going to say that the car, the custom Mustang, very much appears to me, in my little unscientific experiment here with you joining me, and thank you again for supporting the channel, is this is a lime yellow. I'm going to go lime yellow. And unless I hear different, and I know that many of you have been so kind in your comments and your suggestions, etc. Let's push these together real close. We got lime yellow, antifreeze, lime yellow, and then Mr. Olive's going to poke his nose in here. So let's look at these together. And one more time, just back the camera back a little bit so you can see the names that I've assigned to the cars. And that is the look of lime yellow, antifreeze, and olive. Start your engines. That's the way I'm looking at it. Let's put the wheels back on. The way that I do that, let's go backwards now. Of course, this is a U.S. custom Corvette, and so all U.S. custom Corvettes would be all mediums, whereas the Hong Kong, you'd have a small on the front and a medium in the back. So I take the medium tire, see a little hole right there, right? Fits in beautifully. I put it on just a little bit, you know, kind of get it seated, just for that initial kind of holding. Here's a tool we talked about before. The little indentation there is allowing you to take the tool in between the bearing and the actual car, and then you push down a little bit and get it started. See that? Now, if you want to make the axle come out a little bit straighter, as you can see, it's got a little bit of downward appearance on that bearing. Again, this tool is just magnificent, or a tool like it. I'm not saying you got to go to any place, any store in particular. I don't have stock in anything like that. I put the tool in between the bearing and the metal, and kind of give it a little bit of wiggle. Moving it up, kind of wiggle a little bit. You don't want to get too tough on these cars because, heck, these are 55, 56, 50, you know, whatever years old, depending on when the exact manufacturing was. And then, you know, basically give it a little wiggle like that, kind of straighten it out. Take your tire, again, like we did in reverse before, go ahead and put it back in. Get it started a little bit. Put your tool in and then press down on the tire, and voila. There you go. Okay, maybe a little bit more straightening in that, but I'm not going to spend time doing that. I've done a video about that already. So the smalls are basically the same thing. Pretty simple. All US smalls, kind of pushed in a little bit. Take that tool, make the indication. Same thing on this side. Tire goes back on. Simple pimple. Get it started a little bit. Be very careful with your toys. You know, I'm always a little bit on the, I want to err on the side of being gentle with the castings, because like I said, with the age, especially Hong Kong castings, because of their fragility, I just, ask me how I know. Yeah, these are all US, so it's pretty simple to go through this exercise. When you're talking about Hong Kong, the difference is that Hong Kong axles, for whatever reason, I've actually been in a situation where I took the axle off of Hong Kong, or a wheel off of an axle on a Hong Kong, and I actually snipped it off because I didn't want to take the chance of breaking the axle. A little bit more, I guess you got to be a little bit more gingerly about that. Get it started. Again, make sure that you get that little in between the bearing and the wheel, the bearing and the base of the car. And there's your antifreeze coupe. And then last but not least, how do you put a cap back on? How do you put a cap back on? Notice that the axle is sticking up. So what I try to do is make some space and try to push that axle up, right? So it's flush. Get my finger to push it up like that. Here's the cap. Cap on there. Make some space. And you snap it in. And that's that. So there it is, the small example, the short little tutorial, if you will, of colors, at least from my perspective. And I'm so glad that you had a chance to stop by and take a look. Oh, by the way, what's twirling in the background there, those are the featured cars for our auction coming up this coming Tuesday, the 26th of August. These will be the featured cars that we're going to be offering at the sale, the auction, starting at 6 p.m. Central on a Facebook site called Studio-Redline. If you can join us, you know, perhaps you can pick up a beautiful Spectraflame era casting. We've got a Chrome Kitty or a King Kuda in there, tough purple heap. Just a door line. Hey, look at this. I'm gonna snatch him out there for a second. Have you seen a door line Firebird? Yeah, that's gonna be a tough little amigo. That one's gonna be offered up for sale at on the 26th, starting at 6 p.m. Central, as well as some other gems. Anyway, thanks again for joining us. Thanks again for supporting the channel, and we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming auction. If you have any questions about our services for consignments, if you'd like to send me pictures of your toys, I could work I'll work the magic for you, and we'll put some money in your pocket. We're very reasonable, very experienced, very predictable service on our auction services here at Redline Collectibles. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye now.